We'll fire this thing up, huh?
Yeah. Meeting will come to order for February 27th for the County Commissioners in Carroll County. First item is public input.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Morning,
John Ruckinbrod, local oath keeper. We discussed a great topic this morning, Second Amendment. One important fact to always remember about it, even though we may not feel that it has anything to do with us, it has everything to do with us, everybody. We lose the Second Amendment, which is in support of the entire Constitution. Without the Second Amendment, we can't uphold and enforce the Constitution. If our defenses are taken away from society, every atrocity known to history of man will occur. Widespread genocide, you name it. Because ultimately those who are in power, the elite of the world, want most of us dead. That's publicized from their own documents. If we give up our right to protect our founding documents, we won't have anything at all. Seriously, consider that every day. You get up and you open your eyes in the morning, just remember that we got to support what made this nation great. It's really important. People too busy watching TV, like I mentioned in the previous meeting we've had. TV is drawing us away from what is real. And it is. We live in a fantasy world today. We have to get back with the program. Because it's going to happen overnight. If it does happen, that things go down in a bad way, then we're going to be standing there with our mouths hanging open, scratching our heads. What do we do now? There's been a lot of signs come up in the last few years indicating some really bad things coming down the pike if we don't change it. And everybody wants our guns. Why? There's millions of people in society carrying guns today without incident. Problem is, society tends to believe that they don't see them, they're not there. Rest assured they're there. They're just not committing crimes. They're actually keeping society safe because there's not enough officers around to do it. And if you were to remove the law-abiding firearm factor from society, you'll have societies like, downtown Chicago with no guns are allowed. Or, places around the world where there's, nobody can protect themselves. There's a lot of stabbings and everything because, there's not many guns to protect them. Criminals will keep them. Criminals don't pay no attention to laws at all. If we take our right to protect ourselves and our founding principles, you take our right to do that away, how are we going to keep our rights? Won't be able to. And there's been a lot of misconception through the media because we know who the drivers are. The elite characters and corporations and banks of the world. They've taken over many countries already. And we're next. Well, actually, the United States is the last hope for the rest of the world. And everybody's watching us to see what decisions we make through legislatures and everything, what the people put up with. About time we put our foot down. A lot of things going on. There's secret societies having more and more power every day. There's government organizations, not actually non-government organizations, they refer to them as NGOs. They've been empowered by the rich. And they weave a web at every social level, like within counties, towns, districts. There's been a lot of money put into a lot of things that are not for the betterment of the people. They say that, they show up with a nice suit coat and a smile and, we're doing this for the betterment of everybody. Wrong. Removal of an individual's sovereignty, a state sovereignty, is going to destroy America. And it's not a democracy, it's a republic where everybody's opinion, vote counts. It's not a majority rules. The established power in society I want you to believe that, because that's what they push. It is a republic. Thanks for hearing me.
Okay, thank you. Damon?
I was wondering if we could ask Howie and maybe Jason, if he's on today, about the possible impact of the fiscal cliff and the sequester on our budgets. I understand that, there's some cuts being made at the federal level, and I'm wondering, especially with the nursing home, how would it affect Medicaid, Medicare?
Yep.
Yep. I know those are two big things.
We can do that.
Okay, great, thanks. Have you heard anything about how it might affect us?
No.
Countywide? Okay.
No. Have you?
No, except less money means more taxes at the local level.
Yeah.
If you want to maintain the same services.
Another possible impact would be the sheriff's office, because they put in for the highway grants, and who knows if that might.
Yeah, but that's not a major, it amounts to about 16,000, I think.
All right, but if Congress starts, just chopping line items,
Yeah.
who knows where the money's gonna come from?
But that shows up as a revenue, shows up as an expense.
If we get it.
But if we don't get it, then it doesn't show up as an expense, so we haven't lost anything.
So we just won't do those patrols?
Just won't do it.
Okay.
That's right. Anybody else? Ed, you don't have anything for me this morning, or for us this morning?
I could add to what Damon said, but the answer to that would be, it's going to be a natural order of just shrinking government.
Mhm.
So that's the answer, to shrink it.
Okay. Approve the minutes?
Sure. I fooled myself. I did copy them, and I did bring them. Nancy can have those back. Give them to Asha.
This is the corrected one?
No, that's just, that's the corrected one. This is supposed to be before Mr. Gagny gets all upset. It's supposed to be.
You have any other corrections to the minutes,
No.
other than James to Jerry? I didn't pick that up. I read it too on the computer, but I didn't pick that up.
I didn't either.
Anybody else? No other corrections?
I'll move we accept the minutes of February 20th.
I'll second it. All those in support of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye, so voted. I don't know if we have any non-public, do we?
No,
You got anything you want to report on it?
no.
No? Okay. It's something you ought to look at. That's the New Hampshire Association of Counties budget.
Okay.
Did I give you the Hale's location budget?
No, you did not?
I just had it here. Huh.
I thought there was a gentleman coming in to speak to us about the budget.
Not that I know
You
of.
said- Didn't you say the fellow that ran for office was coming in to see us 2 or 3 weeks ago?
Maybe, yeah. Well, we're going out of non-public now, public comments into our regular meeting. We need to approve Hale's location budget. It's down by about 150,000. The difference is last year we took 200,000 out of surplus to do the roads, streets and roads within Hale's location. So that was spent. The only question I would have on it is I'd like to see what was spent. That's what was spent. Wait a minute.
Approved,
Approved,
actual.
Actual, and proposed. What are we missing? Approved, actual. I guess that's it.
Well, I think one of the things we ought to do, Mr. Chairman, is we ought to compose a letter to the Department of Education and ask them why for Chatham, New Hampshire, Fryberg Academy is a public school,
Public-private.
and for Conway, they consider it a private school, so they can't take the funds and send a student over there. It seems to me to be a mixed message, and I think we ought to get because $25,000 a year for a student is just outrageous. Yes, they don't have to pay any capital expense, but they only got 5 students. How much, that's a lot of dough to. And I think we ought to find out why they can't at least consider sending students to Fryberg, which, as I recall back when you were doing this a couple of years ago, was substantially cheaper.
Yes, it was. The only difference was we had to pay transportation.
We had to pay transportation, or they had to provide the
Somehow,
transportation
yep.
themselves.
Yep. Okay. This needs to be approved on March 11th, if that's going to be the last day of the county delegation. Because they have to approve it,
Okay.
okay?
I will,
So the bottom figure is the 274,425. Which
And
is
that's
that
up,
figure right
that's
there.
down
That's down because of the
because of
200,000.
200,000, yep.
Yeah.
So basically,
I make a motion that we approve that figure, but that we do check in with the Department of Education.
okay. I'll second that.
Any further discussion on the budget? This business, this administrator's salary is 16,000. That stays that. It hasn't changed since we hired her. Okay, all those in support of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye, and so voted. You got a motion you want to make?
Yes. Last week, or 2 weeks ago, we made a motion that only the chairman of this board can call for legal advice if the taxpayers are paying for it. Commissioner Kenney said that she didn't feel that was right because we were all equal, or supposedly we're all equal. And the more I thought about it, the more I think she's correct. And I think I've got made a motion here that's a compromise, because I don't think we all should be able to pick up the phone anytime we want, call a lawyer to get legal advice and then charge it to the taxpayer. So my motion is, I move that we rescind the motion of 2 weeks ago, which allowed only the chair to call for legal advice if the county taxpayer is paying for it, and replace it with all commissioners can seek legal advice for county business with a majority consent of the board. That seems much more fair to me.
All right, I'll second it. Any further discussion? All those in support of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye,
Nance?
and so voted. Okay, Jason? Good morning.
Morning, guys.
Morning. That's going to be Commissioner, one copy is for Commissioner Kenney, and one copy is for Commissioner Babson as well. All three? Yes. Okay. And there's more documents for you. Got a lot on the agenda this morning. Okay, so the population, we had 49 in-house, 0 weekenders, 1 electronic monitoring, 4 on transfer status, 2 on pretrial release, total population of 56. Took in 11 inmates last week, 6 were repeaters, and 12 were released. A number of issues to talk about regarding last week's superintendent's meeting. Deputy Attorney General Rice discussed House Bill 133, which is in regard to the superintendent's authority to place somebody out on administrative home confinement without a court order. There's been a redraft of that bill to include a notice, which means that we as a superintendent notify the court and the prosecutor that a person is being considered for administrative home confinement, and that gives the prosecutor a specific time frame to either object or assent to placing that person out. So there's been some, what I'll describe as probably just some resistance of giving full authority to the superintendents without having weigh in from the prosecution
Is
side.
that by the sheriffs?
Prosecutors, actually.
Prosecutors?
Mhm.
Aren't you and Mike in a better position to really determine at that given moment who is really the person you can let out and who can't? The court has all of these records, and yes, there's some validity to them, but you're the ones dealing with them every day.
With respect to that, yes, sir, we are. However, they have to consider victim notification and the victim
Okay.
impact as well. So that's where some of that pushback had come from.
Is it regarding that, is it the case where once they're in the jail, you can do it, or is there a waiting period after they've been in the jail for a week or whatever?
Well, our policy says that you have to be in the facility for a certain period of time, and that allows us to do a
Right.
background and find out their employer and things of that nature.
Well, is
So-
that your policy, Jason, or is that the law or the court's policy?
That's our policy, and all the facilities have similar policies, I would think about, you know.
Does this law, does this RSA or House Bill put into law the amount of time they have to be here before they can go out?
No, it just says that we have the authority to place them out. Under 651-19, I believe, there is a specific time frame, 14 days, that a person has to be incarcerated before they're eligible for administrative home confinement. So that already exists.
Boy, that doesn't seem like a very long time to learn a lesson.
The next thing that we talked about is Deputy Attorney General Rice and Director McAllister of the State Department of Corrections Field Services was in to talk about the current Senate Bill 500 language with respect to the 1 to 5 day sanction that a probation officer can impose. They want to adjust that to up to 30 days in periods of 1 to 7 day increments.
And what was that House Bill number, Jason?
That, it
Senate
doesn't,
bill. Senate bill?
it was a Senate Bill 500, that's already in existence.
Oh, okay.
But they want to change the language that already exists. It says right now 1 to 5 days, and they want to increase that up to 30 days. And then use that in increments of 1 to 7 days. And the reason why they want to do that change is because not a lot of probation parole officers are using that 1 to 5 day sanction because it's really not effective. And then the 30 days has been supported by evidence-based practices, and Chief Justice Nadeau is in support of that as well. Some seminars that they've attended nationwide show that the 30-day sanction is part of best practices. There's a meeting today with Sheriff Hilliard and Superintendent White in the Senate President's office to discuss the blue lights and powers of arrest for certain corrections officers. That bill seems to have some good support in both the House and Senate, and it's scheduled for a hearing, I want to say March 6th, but I could be wrong on that. I know Betsy had sent something out saying she's not going to be available, and that hearing may be rescheduled.
Tell me again what that's all about?
It's in regards for the corrections officers having the ability to have blue lights on the
On the
county
cruisers,
cars
cars.
and have powers of arrest limited, so we
Okay.
can maintain safety and security for staff and inmates.
Jason, I just looked up House Bill, Senate Bill 500, which is in law. they can't change this without having a new law. Do you have the Senate bill number on it, or?
I don't. No. I know
Should be able
Representative
to get it Friday.
Shurtleff?
Shurtleff.
Okay.
He's a former marshal, I believe.
Okay. He has a bill in place, and he is willing to take the piece that I just talked about and add it onto his bill, and I just don't know what that bill is right now.
Okay.
Assistant Commissioner McGonigal was in last Friday to talk about the female prison. They had a meeting yesterday. Unfortunately, I couldn't make it down. I did talk to Superintendent White to ask him for information that was passed out at that work session yesterday, so I can report back to the board on that. The policy that I gave you is to address the issues that we've had regarding inmates being admitted to the facility that may or may not require medical attention.
Okay. That's a change then.
It is a change. If you look on page 3, you'll see the sections that's highlighted, which we are looking to implement. And it basically tells the officers, both law enforcement delivering the individual and our staff, when the person should be medically cleared for incarceration. So if you can approve that, I gave you a cover letter, Commissioner, for you to...
You don't need this approved today, do you?
If I can, that way I can get it out to the staff, and because this is an immediate concern that the chiefs have, and I can let them know that we're changing our policy.
You can't wait a week, so we have a chance to read it. I really don't like signing things that I haven't read.
Sure. If I can just have it for next week then?
That's fine, I'll have it ready. And I'll probably approve it, but I'd like to read it before I sign it.
Okay.
Review for me when a police officer in Conway arrests somebody as a result of a DWI or an accident, and they don't you don't know whether they are injured or not internally. So what is the process once that patrol person arrests? How do they get into the jail?
Well, if they're
They
bringing...
call dispatch, they call you, or how does that handle?
Yeah, they'll notify dispatch that they're gonna be bringing the individual to the facility, and then they'll bring the individual in. We'll pat him down. If we notice any visible injuries, or we'll call it to the officer's attention and ask that they have the person medically cleared.
At that point?
At that point.
Okay.
Yeah.
You record that somewhere though first, right?
What do you mean by
When he
records
comes
it?
in and he's got a gash in his head, you don't just say go to the hospital. You record in that the officer so-and-so brought him in when he had a gash on the head.
We'll do an incident report, yes, sir.
Yeah, okay.
And in the perfect situation, usually if we have medical staff on, that medical staff will come down and do an evaluation on the detainee, determine if they need to be sent out or not. So it's not correctional officers making that decision.
Okay.
So they do have to go to the jail, no matter what?
That's how we're...
Whether you accept them or whether you don't, they still go to the jail?
Right. We've had instances where local law enforcement has called the facility and explained what they have on scene,
Yep.
and we'll give them direction over the phone. It's
Through
hard-
the dispatch?
Or if
Or-
if the officer's calling direct.
Okay. They have that capability in a cruiser?
With a cell phone, they can
Okay.
call.
Okay, go ahead.
And then Captain Fowler has asked about the feasibility of generating some revenue for taking federal inmates. He has some information to provide, and I just want to turn it over to him because he's been the person that has spearheaded this and has all the information to share with you.
Okay, yep.
Thank you. This is something we had looked into about 2 years ago.
Excuse me,
Yeah.
Mike, do you want us to ask questions as we go along, or do you want to go through your whole spiel and then have us?
Whichever's easier for you.
For me, it's easier as
As you
you
go
ride.
along? Okay,
Yeah.
let me grab my pen now then, so I can write stuff down in case I don't know for you. Last year, or I should start out with, we have a total bed capacity of 131. Last year, our average-
Right there's first question. How does that break down, Mike? Is that, how many men, how many women?
That's That's total population.
But you can't,
131.
I don't know much about corrections, but I know you can't mix them. There
Right.
must be a
In our female unit, we can hold up to 19.
19.
Or
okay.
we could also use processing if needed, which are individual areas.
But for holding them for a long time, we got 19.
Correct.
That's right.
In 2012, our average population ran between 50 and 55 inmates, leaving us with 76 available beds that we could actually hold detainees from other facilities, the state, Fed. There's an online application. Without doing that application, we don't know exactly what the per day rate would be. The contact that I have stated for this area that the average rate is $80 to $85 a day.
Before you go any further, do we have any oral agreements or written agreements with any other counties in taking their females or their
No.
males? We don't. It's
Nope.
just we send some, we get some.
Correct. Usually we do a one-on-one basis.
Okay.
We'll hold somebody, say for Stratford, Stratford will hold somebody for us.
Right. Okay.
So that breaks down to if we only housed one inmate for an entire year, we could generate a revenue between $29,000 to $31,000. Two detainees would be $58,000 to $62,000. There's also a part of the agreement where we could assist with transports. The contract will reimburse at a rate of $28 to $30 an hour for each officer, and they also reimburse mileage. The requirement to do something like this would be the facility would be inspected every year. The inspection's just a review of the facility to make sure that it meets the United States Marshal Service standards, and they fall in line with ACA. The inspection does not dictate how you run the facility, but is just a mere suggestion and helps guide you where you can improve.
Question.
Yes.
In the contract, do we have to hold beds? They contract with, say, 20 beds. Do we have to hold those beds 20 so we can't use those?
I would assume without doing the actual agreement, that might be something in there. They're only looking to hold one or two at a time with us. So this isn't we're gonna have to keep 20 or 30 beds open, and then if we fill up, we're in trouble.
Yep.
So what happens if you have a real good July 4th?
Like a plenty of
And you
them.
get 15 of them in here, and we've already, and then they call and they want us to take 2 more.
I got 76 available spaces, so.
Okay. Could you, whoever your contact is, Captain, could you find out if that's in the written contract that we have, because that's an important factor.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, as it stands now, it doesn't make a
Right.
bit of sense. It isn't a problem, but we don't want to get in a situation that we don't know about. If you could find that out, I'd appreciate it.
Absolutely. Attached is a sample agreement. Again, it's just a sample of some of the language that's in there. There's another form, it's a worksheet. It's good to have that prepared before you actually fill out the application. And then there's also a sample inspection form of what they go in and they look for.
Well, obviously, I haven't had a chance to read this,
No, there's
but
a-
I got a bunch of questions.
There's a lot of information in there. So I don't know if you want to review it and then I can come back. Or you
Well,
can-
let's just ask you a couple of questions,
Okay.
because if the answer is no, I'd have to vote against it. But I think if we're gonna go with your suggestion of 2 or 3 or 4, it might be worth a try. But I'd like to know, are all medical expenses covered by whoever sends them here?
Correct. The over-the-counter stuff and the in-house stuff is covered on the per diem rate. Anything that's sent out, any doctor's appointments, surgeries, anything of that nature is reimbursed, or actually the hospital would submit it directly to the federal government and they would pay it.
Well, we had somebody a while back that had some pretty hot medication that was about $100,000 a year, 2 or 3 years ago, didn't we?
An AIDS
Had an AIDS patient. over
inmate,
there,
$2,000 a month.
something like that.
I don't remember
For
that.
medication.
Would that be considered, my question is that considered normal over-the-counter service, or is that
No.
something we're gonna get
No,
stuck
and
for?
my contact actually said that they use their own pharmacy as well. So all that stuff they
You
take
mean
care
they
of
ship
it.
it in?
Correct. So once they're sending someone, I would assume that once they're sending someone, they know what meds he's on, the pharmacy, they order it and it ships directly to us.
Can we limit the amount of requirements that the feds may put on? For example, if it's a foreigner,
Mhm.
we're gonna have to hire an interpreter. Do they require special meals that we're gonna have to prepare differently?
Right.
Um,
If it's, it would fall under the category as any other detainee that we're holding as far as county or state or religious preference, diets, kosher, any of that stuff we have to follow now. As far as foreigner, we deal with that now as far as having to get an interpreter. But I see where you're going with that, and we could strongly advise of what we're capable of holding and not holding.
One of those is our choice and the other isn't.
Yeah,
You know, somebody
Right.
gets arrested and comes in here, we don't have a choice, but if you're selecting a female prisoner from another state, then we have a choice.
Correct. I think one of the goals for the facility should be to have some bilingual people and the stuff in-house, that we can deal with that, regardless if we're getting them local or out of state.
Stratford County have that problem?
Uh,
They have a lot of federal inmates,
Yep.
right?
Without reaching out to them, I can't give you a correct answer.
Okay,
That's something I can research for you.
good.
This is a new process for me as well, so a lot of the stuff I'll have to go back and get information for you,
No, we appreciate that.
but I welcome all your questions.
Can we, Captain, if we get one over here that's a problem, can we ship them back or do we own them?
That's a great question, I can find out for you. Without actually going into the language of the agreement that we set up at the time, then we'll know from there.
And do we have a cookie cutter agreement that we just sign, or do we have the right to put some stipulations in it ourselves?
So what I would suggest is to look at the sample agreement, see kind of what sticks out, what are some, hot topics. From there, any ideas or suggestions or concerns, and then we can go from there, and I can intelligently go back and ask the questions.
To whom are you dealing with in this?
It's a representative for the federal government that he's the contact for this region.
So he should be able to give us the straight scoop.
Absolutely.
Is there anything we have to do to the facilities to make it ACA?
ACA standards is what we follow now,
Mhm.
so we should be right in line. Again, when they come in and do an inspection, it's not to say, you have to do this, you don't have, it's not like that.
I
It's
mean,
just they
for
pick up-
example, they're gonna require that we put up a perimeter fence?
No, I would assume not to, but it's probably a good idea that we do anyways.
Okay.
All of our policies were written to meet ACA standards. We haven't gone through the process of being accredited by the ACA, but all of our policies are written to conform to those standards. And it's the local adult
Is there a fee involved to be ACA
accredited.
accredited?
Yeah,
You know how much that is?
that I don't.
Don't know.
There's somebody I can probably contact though.
And you have to be ACA accredited to take federal?
No,
No,
Oh, you don't have to?
Nope.
no.
Oh, okay.
no, unfortunately, there's no standard in New Hampshire that has to be followed. What this does too, though, it gives us a good idea of where we're doing good, where we're doing bad, suggestions that we can look into doing as well.
Okay.
But again, I don't have all the answers. Anything you want to know or have concerns of, please let me know, and I'll get it as
Have
fast.
they indicated to you that they're looking for space,
Yes,
even with the federal prison up north?
correct.
Really?
Yep,
And these
I
would
would
be coming
imagine.
from me?
wherever.
I think Jay told me that he thought they'd be coming from me, so they could be coming from.
They could be coming from anywhere.
The federal prison up in Berlin, Commissioners, holds all of their sentenced inmates. We would be holding these folks in pretrial status.
Oh, they have those already?
Yeah, the federal prison is run by the Bureau of Prisons, which is a different entity than the Marshal Service.
Oh, okay.
So where do these prisoners come from if they're not federal prisoners?
Well, they-
California,
It's,
Colorado?
they're just they're in a classification status of pretrial. They haven't been sentenced yet, so they would remain in a detention center rather than a prison setting.
So these are all pre-trial prisoners?
Right.
Yeah, that's what I would assume, yes.
So, are we, then we're not looking, I wouldn't think, at a contractual amount of time for each prisoner. If they don't know when they're going to court.
Right.
Okay. Well, it's certainly, I thank you for doing it, because it's certainly worth, I mean, you're gonna have to have the same number of guards, same number of heat, electricity, and lights, and have these beds empty. It doesn't make much sense not to.
I guess
at
it's a
least
good resource
investigate it.
for training opportunities and training information as well.
How many would, if you had your choice, Captain, how many would you like to take in?
I'd like to start small, 1 to 2, just to transition into it, and then look at the numbers on a yearly basis and go from there.
And how long would you consider a trial period? 6 months, a year?
I'd like to do it for at least a year first.
Yeah.
I think that would give us a better feel of what we're looking at, and also what their needs are as well.
Both men and women?
Correct.
Well, I'm not in favor of men, but I think the women, although somebody told me the women can be worse prisoners
That's what I've
than the
heard.
men.
I won't share my opinion, so.
Yeah, I think it's great. Take a look at it and see. I'll read this up this week and we'll see.
Yeah, again, I'll need your help to just steer me in the direction that you guys are looking for, and I'll
Okay.
get all the answers for you that I can.
It's great.
Okay.
Maybe we ought to have that individual come in
After we have
after we
these
looked
two
at this?
guys give us the information we need and look it
Yeah.
up.
Yeah, it'll be a long process. It's nothing that will happen right away, so you have plenty of time to.
Okay.
We're not gonna turn this another one. We're not gonna turn this into a daycare center, are we? I mean, if someone comes in here and they have a child, are we then
Yeah.
responsible for changing stuff around to keep them here?
I don't even know how to answer that, Commissioner.
Well, I think that's, as stupid as it sounds, I mean, it's a possibility, and it may cost us, take away what we thought was a good deal.
I can tell you that we've dealt with pregnant females in the past, so we've ran into these scenarios and are prepared for those situations.
Okay? Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's $120,000 a year if you max it.
Yeah. I bet that there's more problems, though.
Well, it isn't just as easy as it sounds, but.
Right. Right. Okay, Howie?
Looking at it.
Yeah, this is the closest we've ever come. I know over the years, we've talked about federal prisoners, but we've never had any documentation for it.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Three for you.
God, we got more paper here
More
today.
paperwork, well,
Jeepers.
Well, did you see what we spent last year on office supplies? It's no wonder.
that's right. That's,
Not for you, for the whole complex.
We try-
Enough to
we-
choke a horse.
We're trying to equal it or go over it?
Going over it. Believe it or not, it was just shy of $38,000.
it adds up quickly.
Sure does.
Things that I have for you, we have census of 102, including 6 skilled, which is favorable. And speaking about the skilled, item 2, had at no cost, a Medicare reimbursement review yesterday. That was very enlightening. He identified areas that we might be able to optimize our reimbursement and what we need to do in terms of, without adding beds, without changing beds, just in terms of what we do and how we do it. There's this opportunity perhaps for us to generate significant additional revenues. And so we're going to be, looking to see how we do that. Essentially what happens is most people coming out of the hospital have 100 days of skilled care. Well, the idea is that if they need it, we'll benefit by it, to be sure that we provide as many of those days as we can and not arbitrarily cut it off because therapy ends. There's an opportunity for nursing to continue, and we haven't always made that as extensive as it potentially can be. So he identified areas for us to look at, but ones that I'm optimistic will actually generate extra dollars, but not generate any extra costs.
Question was raised earlier regarding if Congress doesn't change what's going to happen here next day or two, what effect is it going to have on the nursing home? Do you know?
I talked with him about that yesterday. It has the potential of a 2% cut. Now, my hope, is that while that would be 2%, if we can increase our revenues by 10%, take the 2% cut, that we can still be 8% ahead of the game. But he's not predicting anything that would be particularly harsh. It's, no cut is good, but we actually have the opportunity to make up for that. So at the very least, it should not affect our budget.
2% of your total budget, or 2% of what the feds put in?
2% of the Medicare portion, which is where most of it would have, as near as anybody can predict, it would be coming out of the Medicare side and not the Medicaid side, as near as anybody can predict at this point. It's a significant number of dollars, but fortunately, we're in a position of recouping that and more so by optimizing our reimbursement.
Howie, you know, I left the latest sheets that we had for the final delegation at home. Do you know off the top of your head what the total revenue is for the Medicare that's going to be cut?
I don't. And it wouldn't be much more than a guess. So.
Well, we won't make you look bad.
No, I won't. I could guess. I know it's about a third of the total.
Okay.
So I mean, I know what it should be enough. I know what it should be, but I hate to wing it for you.
Okay.
But I think we're going to be able to recover anything that is, if it's in that 2% range, we should be able to increase revenues beyond what's in the budget to more than cover that. Under 3, unscheduled absence tracking, something that I'm a proponent of is that it goes back to an old saying that you can't manage, what you can't measure. When people talk about absences, and is it a problem or not a problem? Well, starting February 1st, designed a tracking mechanism so that we can know. Now, I don't know whether the results are particularly good or particularly bad. They do raise a few eyebrows and should, because as of yesterday, we had 139 unscheduled absences. Now, remember,
Excuse me, that's someone that calls in sick in the morning and can't make it?
sick in the morning or with little or no notice uses a personal day. It does not include
Scheduled
things like
vacation
vacation or Family Medical Leave Act.
Okay.
These are people who, short notice, we have to replace. And that's the part that creates morale issues, staffing issues, and quality issues. And that's about 5.3, well, that is 5.3 on average per day for February.
So
Now,
this 139 unscheduled absences are just in 1 month?
that's just
just
from
February?
February 1st. That's through yesterday. So it's not all of February.
Wow.
It strikes me as being high. Now, looking at the same numbers through a different lens, it also shows that 70% of our staff have not taken an unscheduled absence. So,
Is there any kind of reward for these people?
well, there is.
No, there'll be a penalty for those that don't.
Well,
Either way.
and that's an interesting school of thought. It's hard to punish your way out of something. But what we want to do is to thank and reward the other people. So we started also in February what's called a High Five Club. So we are going to provide a modest reward to those who go 60 days without an unscheduled absence. And that's part of why we created the tracking mechanism.
But
So
you know, the philosophy is they get paid to work, and so we're going to pay them more for not taking.
well, we can't pay them less for not working. We can't really punish somebody for, we can discourage, we can monitor, we can manage. Typically, in many management theory, the mere fact of keeping track tends to generate its own response. Sometimes people think that if nobody's paying attention, what does it matter? Why not? It's just easier to. I think staff has been sharing. The other thing that feel very committed to is sharing information with staff. So staff have the same information, and they're shocked. I don't think they realized how difficult it is, because when you call in, you're making it difficult for the staff who
The
do
other
come
people,
in.
yeah.
And so I think, I'm going to predict that just by managing this, we're going to see this trend downward, just by paying attention to it.
The other thing we can do when a union contract comes up, we can reduce the episodes. Or get rid of the episode system completely.
That is something I've never seen before, and it does, and we've tested, we've asked a couple people. The nature of the episode is that if you're out one day, essentially if you have 8 episodes, you're subject to termination.
But the problem
An
is.
episode is up to 3 days.
But the problem is that they use up these episodes all along until they get to the 7th one. They stop, and then all of a sudden they have an emergency, they have to be out. That's another episode, and they're fired,
Exactly, and that's,
terminated.
and what's
Something
odd is
wrong with
you
that.
could still have sick time on the books and be fired for being absent, and I think that's a challenge waiting to be had. So I think when it comes time for contract, I think the union having this information will be supportive of us, because these absences create a problem for staff.
Sure.
They don't like working short or working with per diems or being asked to work more hours than they want to.
Yeah.
In fact, the union has actually been very understanding, I think, in support of the union leadership. So we're optimistic about that.
Howie, the 63 different staff members, are you keeping record to this by names so that, yes, you have 63 that have taken 139 unscheduled absences, but there could be 3 or 4 people in there that have taken
Taking a lot.
a lot, and maybe only a couple of people that have taken 1.
It's all tracked individually. And I track it by individual absences, not by episodes. So
And do you track it by, you say unscheduled, so that's not planned, so they call in the morning or late in the afternoon and say, I'm not coming.
correct.
Do you break that down also for the people that don't call?
Well, in fact, that's where that number, so we have the 70%, well, everybody has to call in if they're gonna be absent. So a no-call, no-show is pretty close to a capital offense. So you can't just.
But you get 2 or 3 of those, as I remember reading the contract, before anything can happen to you.
It's a termination.
I don't think, well, and I would need to review the contract. I don't think the contract provides for any no-call, no-show. It's generally
That's
considered.
right. It's
Sorry?
termination.
It's considered
Okay.
dereliction of duty.
Okay, well, that takes care of that question.
Every
Thank you.
once in a while, there'll be a misunderstanding where somebody is always on the same schedule, the schedule's changed, and with no malice, they don't show up, but they assume that they were working Tuesday, and it's an honest mistake, and they get a warning for that, because they are responsible. But if somebody knowingly just blows off their shift, that's actually, they could be terminated just for the single instance. We usually give people at least one warning, because it's a reasonable thing to do.
Okay, thank you.
But now we have, and it's just a simple spreadsheet, but we have all the information, we include in it the notes for whether it's a personal day, a sick day, or whether it's, because the idea, people will get sick, and quite frankly, in a healthcare environment, if someone is sick, we don't really want them in. We don't want them to share their illness with the rest of us. Snow removal did send a note to Will, because,
good.
Mountain View presents a very challenging snow removal, because there's always cars. And so it's a real challenge for Will and his crew to work around cars, and it's been a difficult year, and it hasn't been without problem, but he and his crew have actually done, given the circumstances, have done a great job. The interesting part, number 5, with Facebook, I have no explanation for this, but we have a very popular Facebook page, and it's last week the total reach is up to 1,100 people, up over 400 people visit, or up over 400 visits over the week before, and the likes are up 19 over the week before, which is remarkable. We're increasingly using it as a communication tool. This is how our younger staff connect and pay attention to things.
Is it Mountain View Nursing Home?
Yeah, Mountain View Nursing Home. And if you haven't liked it, you should press the like button to join the growing numbers. Purchasing policy, attached you'll find a preliminary policy for how we do purchasing. Mountain View is unique in terms of, in the typical arrangements, when you're buying a capital item, you get 3 bids, you get the best price, and it's easy. It's a little bit more complicated when you're buying large amounts of supplies and supplies on a regular basis. So I've put into place for you a preliminary policy that I think balances out the needs of all concerned. so that we have a way of getting a price, but we also have a way of monitoring that price throughout the contract term in a way that doesn't obligate the county to continuing with a given vendor. So maybe if we renamed it, it's really more of a vendor management policy, but it's something that to give you and to give you confidence that we're doing price comparison and we're doing it on an ongoing basis. So I'm not looking for action for that today, but for a first reading, so that you have it in your package.
We gotta be careful. The RSA's say anything over 5,000 is gonna go out for bid.
Well, and this would meet that, because it does go out for bid. But given that there's no vendor that's gonna lock in in a way that would be favorable to us, a price for an entire year, we wanna be sure that at any given period, we're always getting the best price that's available.
But that 5,000 holds true for the whole year. If you have a contract with a vendor that agrees to the contract 5,000, over 5,000, it could be a month at a time, it's $1,000. Once you get to the 5,000, the 5 months, that's 5,000. Anything over that's got to go out for bid.
In fact, that's what I'll add that to it, so it shows that any vendor with an aggregate sales in a given year of $5,000 or more would be subject to this policy.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's what I intended, but here again, I appreciate the input, because it should be made clear, so if somebody were looking at it through the lens of the RSA,
Yeah.
this would show that be compliant.
Okay.
Holly, I mentioned to you after the signing checks the first week here on the job, the name of a vendor in Minnesota or Michigan that was,
McKesson.
yeah, well, I didn't want to put it out there. And my question was, each one of their appeared to be weekly billings is over $5,000.
Monthly, wasn't it?
Monthly.
Monthly. 5,000 or 6,000
I've seen
per
2 weeks in a
month.
row, I've seen checks for, maybe it is monthly, but
Yeah.
anyway, the question is, we have the $5,000 policy. How can you set up a contract for purchasing from these people when each week, each month, or each week, or 2 weeks, it's over that amount of money?
Well, this policy addresses that. In fact, it's geared directly to the complications of a vendor like that who's dealing with, 50 or 60 products. Now, in any given list, about 80% of our total expense is going to be represented in about 25 different items. So we will go out to 3 different vendors, McKesson and 2 others, for prices on those 25 products. And look at the total price in aggregate. Some will be higher on things, some and low on others, but for the use that we use, not just the price of the item, but for the amount of the item that we use in a given period, typically a month, we'll get prices on that, and based on that, essentially award the bid to, say, Company X. But we also require, now, the thing we always have to be suspicious of, a company that doesn't have our business has absolutely nothing to lose.
And everything to gain.
To get into the game. So we are going to look for that guaranteed price, for that price to continue for 90 days. And then if the price does go up, for us to be given 30 days notice, plus the opportunity to buy before the price goes up. So we always get the buy-in at the low price, but not wanting to work things to the benefit of the county. We're not obligated to stay with that contractor to the end of the year.
Mm-hmm.
We have the right, in fact, and the policy directs our staff to at least 3 other times during the year to test the pricing with other vendors. So we have the right to break that contract apart and go selectively if we want to.
Mm-hmm.
But at the very least, we're going to be monitoring essentially 4 times a year as a minimum. So we will build up a contract, and I feel comfortable in doing this because I went right to the source and checked to see if our present suppliers would be amenable to this. So, I mean, don't want to draw up something that's pie in the sky that works for us that somebody wouldn't work with us on. Our vendors, good vendors, are willing to play by those terms.
Mhm.
What they appreciate, and the leverage that we have with a vendor, is the county pays on time. Truth is, not all their other accounts pay on time. They don't have to worry about getting paid. That's a big plus and leverage that we can use with them to get the best price and the best terms. And so, but it's, although it's what we've been doing informally, I've talked with Lisa Howard, it's really what we've been doing this is an opportunity for us to formalize it so that it passes any kind of test that you, delegation, or anybody else in the public might ever want to look at it, so they can have confidence that.
There's some companies that supply some things that you need, but not everything.
We have, it's
Lots.
a lots. McKesson catches about 2/3 of the medical part, but there are some things that some things they don't carry that staff prefer to use, or the doctor requires, or physicians require that we need to get from, that we need to otherwise outsource. And we try to minimize the number of vendors because it maximizes our purchasing power. It also helps with inventory management. We're actually going to be looking for some of these contractors to actually help us with inventory, because we don't want to buy anything, we don't want to buy more of anything than we have to in order to get the best price. We don't want to be a warehouse. We don't want to buy truckloads of things, because what happens when things change? And so we want them to do the inventory. There's a real cost of maintaining inventory. So we want to be cognizant of that at all times.
Yeah.
And that'll be part of the contract, that I'm actually suggesting that we punish any supplier who can't deliver on our core products. I mean, we don't want somebody to say that we can take care of everything and then always be back-ordered, because back-ordering requires us to buy more than we need to just in case. I'm suggesting that if they back-order, we get a discount, so that we punish them, essentially, on identified items.
Good luck.
Well, that's, so far, well, it won't happen if we don't try.
Howie, how do you pull the orders for Lisa together? Do you have a requisition sheet that each department fills out and she piles them up, or how does that work?
What she's doing now, it's an interesting and, on the one hand, very efficient. There is the purchase order system that you described, where everybody would put in their orders. What she finds to work, and it seems to work very well, is in the new building, there are essentially 4 different storage closets. And so she's doing an inventory and returning them to a par level, with the staff only letting her know when there's an exception. So if there's something that gets discontinued, they let her know. If there's something that's new that's needed, they let her know. But rather than having 8 people be involved in the process, it's largely Lisa doing a physical inventory.
Oh, good.
That I think the vendor is going to pay for us to be able to go electronic with. So she won't have to do the physical inventory, but once a month instead of once a week.
Are any medications purchased in the nursing home for the jail,
Not,
or can they be combined?
now, not to my knowledge, but it might, I think Omnicare is only for Mountain View. I don't know how the jail gets their medications. We'd certainly be
I
glad
mean,
to.
that's certainly a combo that would work together. It's
Yeah.
just like that in the office supplies. There's no reason that every one of these departments are buying their own office supplies, or
And Lisa has opened
everybody
herself
buying
up
their own
to do
bathroom
it.
supplies or maintenance supplies. I would think that Lisa would be the one to do it.
She's glad to, and she's opened that door to all the other departments, some of whom have specific needs and prefer to do it on their own, but I know that we help out, I think primarily with the jail, but we're willing to assist in any way with any of the other departments.
I thought you did, in talking to Jason, I thought you did do some buying for the jail.
We
Well,
do.
They'll have some supplies.
We do get some
Yeah.
supplies primarily for the jail. For the administrative office side, strangely, there's not really a discount. When you're buying from Staples, there's not really a discount, and they deliver, and if each orders them separately, they deliver to both separate parts for the same price. So there isn't always an economy of scale. There is, I think, with the jail, in terms of, especially with some paper supplies, that I think comes in on the same truck.
Yeah.
Can you find out from Lisa who the person that sets up commercial contracts for Staples is here in New Hampshire or New England or wherever it is, and we'll sit down and talk to them? When you start talking $38,000 for office supplies, somebody's gonna listen, I can guarantee you that.
Well, let's have that discussion. I mean, that could make a difference. If all of a sudden we say we're gonna go from, $10,000 to $38,000, that might put us into some kind of a different status.
keep in mind, just for your information, commissioners, if it's unanimous, we can take any contract with good reason. But that normally doesn't happen very often. Follow me? In other words, we could accept a contract. Might be a high one, or might be a low one. But as long as we have good reasons to do that, we can take any contract.
As
It
you
has to
deem-
be unanimous.
As you deem to be in the best interest of the county. And
Yeah,
that's-
yep,
and-
exactly.
And that's actually important, because the low bid isn't always the best value.
Mhm.
And because there are other things that good vendors can bring to bear that can actually help.
Well, the low vendor doesn't have 2 out of the 28 items, and you pay more someplace else for the 2, and now they're not low anymore.
Exactly. Budget update, I think things have been submitted to the full delegation with relatively little change from what, the commissioners approved. And I think the subcommittee was very good about spending the time, listening. We didn't get everything, but they didn't go at it with a hatchet. I think they were careful, so that's, it's eminently something that we can live with.
Question I have that came up at the budget hearing, at the delegation meeting, L&As. Did we do a survey of local nursing homes as far as what L&As are being paid?
We did 4. We did 2 in the Meredith area, plus 1 in Wolfboro and 1 in North Conway.
Yeah,
And what we found is that our starting wage, to the degree that they're being candid, is roughly comparable.
oh, I
It's-
thought it was a lot lower.
We're much lower than the county system, but we're comparable in the local market.
Okay,
And that's, and the subcommittee was very sensitive to that. So essentially, they recommended to the full delegation half a loaf, which would allow for an increase after, I think it's 90-day, after a 90-day review, after a probationary period of 90 days,
Mhm.
to look for not the dollar as initially proposed, but 50 cents as revised. So that will keep us, now what is interesting in the local market and in the Meredith market too is that our benefits far exceed what the private sector is willing to pay. So we are still a very attractive employer. There is some disparity in-house because L&As are coming with training, certification, and ongoing requirements that our housekeeping and dining services staff aren't, and it's the same, essentially the same starting wage.
yeah.
So this will, if the delegation does approve what's been recommended, it'll still go a long ways to helping things out.
Howie,
Go ahead, I'll go after.
Howie, when you compared the benefits, I know I heard that over there in the subcommittee meeting, and I was kind of surprised, frankly. Number one, did you compare apples to apples? And B, what did you measure? Cost of medical insurance, number of holidays?
Well, we looked at just about everything, and there's really no comparison. In the private sector, there's no pension, there's half as many sick days. Health insurance is a less solid product, and there's much greater participation on the part of the participant of the staff member for doing it. So it's the private sector has backed away from benefits tremendously in the last decade or so, including one of the 4 offers virtually no benefits. In others, very limited
No
benefits.
benefits?
No benefits.
Nothing.
I mean, it's amazing. Places that are starting up do not have benefits, no health, no retirement, most often it would be the thing that would be comparable would be vacation time. Vacation time is comparable among places. The sick time is better within the county systems. But where the county does it the way that it should be done, but which is not the way that it's typically done in the private sector.
Then why are we always looking for L&As? If we have we have comparable
Yeah.
starting pay and best benefits, I would think they'd be flocking to this place.
Well, and they should be, but and I hate, to generalize, which isn't much help, but to generalize, LNAs aren't interested in the benefits. Young people are invincible. They don't need health insurance. They'll go bare. What they want to do is to
They want money in their pocket.
They want a car payment. They want cash. So if they can make more money as a waitress getting tips than the $10 an hour we pay, they will jump. Now, having said that, we don't really have a significant turnover in our LNAs. So once we have somebody, they do tend to stay. If we have a problem attracting in LNAs right now is that we seldom have full-time openings. So we haven't advertised, but we are working, and I'm working with Becky, because what we have to do is we look at all these absences, and what we need to do is to figure out how can we change from, we want to eliminate any kind of scheduled overtime, we want to limit our per diems, and create more staff positions. At the same time, be cognizant of the fact that, well, and the delegation was cognizant of this too, is there wasn't an interest on their part of creating too many additional benefited positions. And so it's
16
kind of,
hours, so there's no benefits.
exactly, they would prefer, but that creates kind of the turntable, the turnstile effect where people are coming and going, the revolving door effect. And so there's a balance between having a core group of benefited people who you can always count on for their 40 hours, with still having enough part-timers to be able to fill the gaps because we're 7 days, 24 hours.
Out of the 139 unscheduled absences, Howie, does your chart show from what departments these come from? Are
It
they
does.
LNAs?
It does. I haven't broken it out that way, but it will, and it'll also show, because we keep, nice part about creating our own, not buying independent software, breaking it down also by
You're
whether.
quite a promoter for yourself, aren't you?
What's that?
You're quite a promoter.
Well, but because we want to keep control, because so often people toss out things, we want to have information, but here, I'm breaking it down by full-time, we can break it down by department, we can even break it down by those that have been here 30 days or more, or a year or more, so that we can find out, the more we know about what the problem really is, the more we can fix it instead of making it worse.
Well, this is a great idea.
I mean, it's.
I hope you continue it.
And I love the fact that it's free. Essentially, it's not time consuming. Lisa Delisle gets the information from the department heads each day, just adds it in, and then I do the calculations part, which are pretty much done right. It adds it up each day by itself.
Do you have any, or a rough idea whether about the 139, where they're coming from?
Mostly out of nursing and health, mostly out of nursing. I mean, Rob has a very dependable dining services staff, because we actually give each morning, and the reason I can say it with some assurance is each morning at morning meeting, we give kind of an absence report. And dining does well, maintenance does well, housekeeping does real well, activities does well. It's by default. What's left is, of course, the largest department, whereas you would
Right, so
expect to
nursing.
have the most, it's the 24-hour department. So, but what I don't know is, well, this might even be good news and we don't know it yet. So until we get more information, don't really know, it's something of concern, but we don't know enough yet to know whether that 136 is horrible till we have something to compare it to, including other places. So I'm interested in getting some other data from other county homes, actually, to find out what they're seeing. The 136 sounds horrible. The 5.6 per day doesn't sound, of course, it's 5.6 more than what you want.
You have, 150 there per day, or is it more than that?
Well, in terms of, and that's the other part that I haven't done, we have to figure out exactly how many shifts we have in a given day to know, it might not really be horrible. It's certainly a problem, but it might not yet be horrible. So it's still a work in progress.
Absences could be the night shift, because they don't like the night shift.
Night shift is actually,
But
they are dependable. Our night shift is
There's less
great
to
over
do
there.
at night, I suppose.
Well, but there are also people.
There's less people on.
There's less
night
people, not a whole lot fewer. There's only about 2 fewer than on evenings, if you on the nursing end. But what happens with nights? People choose to be on nights,
Mhm.
and so it's a dedicated group who like that. They're a core group that work together, 3 to 11 is people that can be coming and going. So we need to look at what's going well. That's the other part that we need to track, because it makes a difference. Well, if it's all 3 to 11, if it's all days, if it's only on weekends or
It's
snow
always
days
on
or
Fridays
Mondays.
and Mondays.
Well, exactly,
They want a 4-day weekend.
and we actually track it that way. To know where the trends and patterns will be, whether it's LNAs, whether it's, RNLPNs or MNAs, so that we can figure out exactly, so at least we can know what the real problem is. But right now, it's too early to know if it is a significant problem or not. 5.6, I gotta believe is high, but it might not be outrageously high.
Well, it's also the season when people are locked in and can tend to get sicker during the year in the winter than they do in the summertime, so maybe the number will drop.
Well, and that's the hope. We also suspect that there are snow-related problems, and in addressing that, what I've told staff is that while we make no commitment to do so, that we are prepared to come and get you if need be. So that, because in a serious event, hey, we have some people that just shouldn't drive in snowy days, and some people whose physical location, the 300-foot driveway, if they don't park at the end of it, they're not going to be able to get in, but if they can get to the end, we might be able to pick them up. We don't guarantee taxi service, but we say don't not come in because you can't get there. Call and we'll do what we can. And certainly over the years, that's always been an important part of what I've done, is to go out and pick people up to bring them in and to bring them home.
I was just thinking outside the box. Have you talked with the Blue Loon people to see if it's possible for
They were
them?
canceled
They
today.
canceled their bus.
Oh, well.
Yeah, yeah.
Too much snow, they couldn't make it today.
Yeah, they seem to be pretty quick to cancel, so.
A question regarding your budget. Do you have in there enough money to do an audit on the medical, I can't think of her name, is it Lisa, that does the medical,
For the MDS?
yeah, MDS coordinator?
I think we want to take a different approach, and that actually started yesterday. By bringing in this Medicare reimbursement, that's essentially an audit of facility-wide, of which MDS is a big component. They are going to be preparing a recommendation for training. What I'd rather do, the problem with an audit is it tells you where you are, but it doesn't fix anything.
But it would tell you that some of the things that we're missing, that we're not doing.
Well, that's what we got for free yesterday, and he's going to come back and do those
Okay.
kind of audits. But more importantly is they're identifying a trainer that they can bring in here, and they're going to give me a price on that, to train not just additional training for Lisa, but actually for all of us, to change our attitude and approach to see how we can better identify and the opportunities that are out there. Because for whatever reason, you fall into patterns and habits where you just assume that if somebody's discharged from therapy, that they're not eligible for Medicare. Or you make the assumption that because you know somebody is terminal, that they're not eligible for Medicare, because many people think that Medicare is only if there's a rehab potential, and it's not. So there are things that we can be more aggressive with, but we're able to get the audit for free. I'm hoping that there is going to be enough money, I don't have the price yet, for this training, which not only will help identify problems, but will identify some real solutions for.
Well, the
for how to-
MDS coordinator can make us or break us, right? They can bring in a lot more money if they're doing the job, if they know about what to do.
Definitely, and this will be part of that process.
Okay. All right.
The last thing I have there is to have some other paperwork in your packet for staff goal setting and reviews, which is a slightly different approach. State mandates that we do annual reviews, but it in no way limits us to what we can do it or how we do it. And my goal is to have it be a positive process where we have people identifying where they need help, what they want to do, and have it be less of a look back than it is a look forward to it. Because going to an annual review and hearing for the first time that your supervisor's concerned about something from 6 months ago isn't very helpful. and it can be demoralizing. But built into goal setting, now let's say somebody, a supervisor, is concerned about attendance. Well, rather than talk about where somebody's been in the past year, it'd be good to identify what are the obstacles to this person being able to attend more, or more, or what are the problems? And it could be that, the supervisor just isn't doing the schedule far enough ahead. It could be something that's eminently fixable, but it can be talked about in a positive way that'll generate a more favorable outcome.
I think one of the problems we've always had is that when they have children, sometimes the daycare doesn't open at the right time. They have to be here at work before the daycare opens, and I don't know if there's any adjustments, if you're making adjustments for those people to come in a little bit later but stay a little bit longer or something.
Well, had just such a meeting with the housekeeping staff a few weeks ago, and one of the gals brought that up. In her mind was that if she had to be late, she couldn't come. And so I asked her boss, well, and I know the answer, but she thought because she was told she had to be there at 8 o'clock, well, there's no problem with that being an 8, instead of an 8 to 4:30 shift, being an 8:30 to 5 o'clock shift, so that we can make that reasonable adjustment, costs nothing. I like the idea of spreading hours out over the day in any case, because inevitably everybody goes home, and that's when something gets spilled or dropped. So it's the kind of thing that can be desirable all around, as long as it's talked about, known, and planned. And so it ends up being things like that cost nothing to fix, but just people just making assumptions.
Make some adjustments.
We need to be family friendly if we're going to attract and keep staff.
Yeah.
And I think staff can be very respectful of that. We need to encourage them to have daycare arrangements, that we need to encourage them to have six-child coverage to the degree that they can. But there will always be cases where they can't.
Question, another question?
Go ahead.
Howie, in this last paragraph, you say there's a draft here with a letter. Is this the draft? I don't have, this is the only thing that I can come close to
There should be.
seeing here. I don't have anything else.
There's a cover letter for, and it should say 2 staff members coming up for annual review.
No. We got thank you, staff newsletter, another newsletter, draft only.
Oh, that's a draft.
Oh, here it is, I got it.
Oh, okay.
I got it. It's buried.
And I didn't mention the newsletter, but I don't know if you're interested in newsletters, but we have started doing staff newsletters. They're not terribly formal or official, but communication is an important thing. Staff actually appreciate hearing what's going on and the what and wherefore.
We have, I think, 2, maybe 3 different evaluation forms that we're looking at. Whether that can be done universal throughout the whole complex, to use that form for evaluation of people, might be questionable right now, but we will be coming up with an evaluation form. In your past, regarding evaluations, have the staff filled out a self-evaluation?
No.
No.
It's the one we're presently using, and the one that's fairly standard is the supervisor is looking at 5 areas of, 5 areas of performance, including, dependability and knowledge, and they're checking off essentially A, B, or C, and it's kind of perfunctory.
But do they write up? I think the most important thing is if they are not strong in one area, then the evaluator will make a suggestion as to how you can improve, either through additional training or whatever.
Well, and that sometimes is done, but as often as not, everybody's doing it to get it out of the way.
That's why I don't want to see it really complicated, but you also want to see it meaningful.
Well, what I've had the best luck with is people picking up more than 3 things that are become part of an action list, and that the supervisor be held accountable for that. So that becomes part of their, and it ends up being 3 things are reasonable to keep track of, and then for follow-up. And that's what I've used in the past, and it ends up working out pretty simply. From the state requirement, the state rightfully requires from Health and Human Services that if you identify a deficit or a problem, that you also put together a plan of correction. That you can't just say a staff member has a problem and not do something about it. And they're right in doing that.
The previous one was quantity of work, quality of work, dependability, cooperation, and teamwork, and leadership were the major components of the one we had. And then on the second page, you can write in comments regarding work habits, job knowledge, and adaptability, that kind of a thing. That's what we've had in the past. So we're looking at one from the Rockingham County and from another county.
Rockingham and Merrimack.
Okay.
What I'm working with supervisors at is that if they see somebody with a problem, not to save it up for the annual meeting, if there's a question or a concern, to bring it up that day.
Oh, yeah.
And so that it doesn't become something that gets saved up, because truly, half the time, there's miscommunication. What's perceived as being a problem, there's more to the story. And it's a shame for somebody to be coming to judgment without getting it out of the way. What I find, and it's not unusual, is that people don't always talk with each other. They talk about each other, they talk to everybody else except to each other. We want to force supervisors to engage. That's the supervisor's job, and to the extent that they engage, they're going to encourage their own staff to engage them. But the lead has to come from the supervisors, and they're very willing. They're not. It's new to them in some cases, but it's not completely foreign to them. They're willing to do it.
Got any further questions?
I do not.
I don't either. Do you have anything else to?
No, that is all the burden you with today.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Keep
you.
up
Thank
the good
you.
job. Coffee.
Okay.
Olin?
We're going to open it up for public comment. Sheriff, you got anything for us today?
No, not really.
Okay, no problem.
Keeper of the computers.
We just see you here. Huh?
Keeper of the computers.
I won't go there. Okay, we are going to have a non-public session with the county attorney, and we'll have that after the commissioner's work session. So I guess at this point in time, do you have anything for public, Janice?
Actually, yes, there's a couple of things.
Okay.
I do have the non-public minutes from 2/20/13 that Commissioner Kenney had asked me to type up. I wanted to let you know that with DocStar, I have put together a request for proposal, and have given that actually to John Rich to take a look at, because he knows the technical terms of what
Yeah.
it needs to be compatible with and so forth. The sheriff at this time has opted not to participate in DocStar because they have a similar system, but would like to leave it open for the future to be able to join, and is interested in what that might cost.
So
for
we
their
can press a
department.
button and get whatever is in the sheriff's department? Jeez. Okay.
The Registry of Deeds is also not interested in participating. I believe it has more to do with
I got one there.
what the legal requirements are.
Excuse me, Jim. just
Yes,
Don't leave that over there. That's non-public.
You're right. Okay.
okay. The Registry of Deeds at this time does not wish to participate, and I believe it has more to do with the requirements regarding raised seal documents and what their current storage is now. I recall from the proposal that they made it, there was some nuance about if it was a raised seal document being able to store.
All right, yeah.
So, at this time, they don't wish to participate, but it would be, I haven't heard from the county attorney's office yet, but it would be administration, nursing home, House of
Jail.
Corrections for sure.
Yeah.
They all have a very definite interest in it. So, once I hear back from the county attorney and back from John Rich, I will give that to you folks to approve, and then we can get
Okay.
that out. I also had a request from Kathy Gary downstairs, sent a request from Commissioner Kenney for timesheets for a former employee, and I just want to be sure that there was a vote of the board before I hand anything out.
Could you come back for a non-public session
I
for
can do
that
that.
today for a few
Yeah.
minutes?
I can do that.
Yeah.
I've contacted the various directors and elected officials regarding our first meeting on March 27th at 1 o'clock with suggestions for an agenda and so forth. And pretty much the consensus just seems to be, make sure it's pertinent to everybody, because they
Well.
don't want to sit through something that isn't
I
pertinent
think
to
two of them
everyone.
already have asked me what we're doing this for.
Well, two of them say it's gonna be too frequent.
Yep.
Maybe once every 6 months or something, but
Okay.
we'll see how the first one goes.
Our answer is, let's see how the first one goes.
Okay,
We may
Yeah.
need it 3 times a month, we may need it only once in 3 months, you know.
sounds good to me. And then the last thing I just want to talk to you about in non-public is a proposal, but I'll give to you folks
Okay.
on a personnel matter.
Okay.
And that's it for public.
Have you seen this one from the,
No. Not yet.
I think it's appropriate, isn't it, for the HR person to look at policies that may be drafted from the House of
Absolutely.
Correction?
Absolutely.
Okay,
Okay.
make a copy of this.
You can have that, that's my
Okay.
copy, but,
Especially if that person's a lawyer.
well, okay. Anything else?
That's it.
No. We got anything else we want to do before we, for public input? All right, I guess at this point in time, we'll open it up for public input. Damon?
Regarding the timesheet that Commissioner Kenney wants, why would that discussion be in non-public?
Can I answer that?
Go ahead.
Because I don't think it's fair to bring up the name of an employee when we have no idea what it's about, Damon. If we get together and we find out what it's about, and it should be public, you can be sure I'll be the first one to make the motion that it is public, but I don't want to drag somebody through the mud without knowing who it is or why.
Okay. Anybody else, public input? Yes, Ed?
Mr. Chairman, how much money is spent on paper in this county? I believe.
He said
Commissioner Babson-
38,000 and.
But that's everything, Ed. It was $38,000 last year. 37, close enough to call it 30,
And
38.
what was the cost for DocStar?
24 to start with?
And then there's a recurring annual fee.
I think so, yep. Yeah, for the initial package, it was 24 something.
Well, it would seem that would save a lot of money, not to generate this much paper.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So, thank you.
We got to put it out for bid, but hopefully we'll find one or two more that would bid on it. Yep.
Thank you.
Anybody else, public input? Yes, Melissa?
At the February 13th Commissioners meeting, I believe Commissioner Sorensen said that the board was going to go into non-public to take a vote on whether or not to call the attorney about Kenny's website. Did that happen?
No,
That wasn't even a motion.
that wasn't,
She accused us of having told
that's
the
what.
attorney. We didn't take any vote whatsoever. I denied it, and
I
David
denied
denied
it.
it.
The question came up, I think it came up in public, didn't come in non-public.
Right.
Came up that she said that I called Liz Bailey to have her check on her website, and I never did that.
Maybe I didn't phrase the question right. There was a lot of discussion that day about the website and things that were on it.
Yeah.
And you said that the board was going to go into a non-public and get a vote whether or not you could call the attorney to ask about things that were on her website, if they were appropriate. So I'm just.
Okay, well, we didn't do it.
We didn't do that.
We didn't do it.
Okay. is it fair for the taxpayers to assume additional liability concerns over Kenny's comments about former employees? Do you think it's fair if the taxpayers are maybe held responsible for any suits that might come out of this or any action that might be taken by someone if she, acting as a commissioner, chastises former employees? On her website, I mean, she says some pretty direct things that
Yeah.
that the former employee's grievance was frivolous and politically motivated and illegitimate. She accuses that employee of having a history of manipulating the county tax dollars. What responsibility does the commission have?
I do not read her website.
Right.
What she says on there, at least from the one that I responded to the paper on, that's the only one that
That was the same
I
one
had.
there.
What's that?
That's the same one that was
It's
on
the
her
same thing
website.
that was in the newspaper.
Okay.
So I
Okay.
guess my question is, as a commission, do you feel any obligation to protect the taxpayers, and maybe, is there any action that you could take? Or is this just a matter of her free speech and she can say and do whatever she wants and
I guess
as a
that
commissioner, because she's not saying it as Asha Kenney the person, she's saying it on her website and in the paper as a commissioner.
My
Go ahead.
assumption, Melissa, is that if she puts it on her webpage, whether she's Mrs. Santa Claus or the commissioner or whoever she is, she's responsible for what she puts up there. Certainly not responsible for what she says, and Commissioner Sorensen is in support. She's on, as far as I'm concerned, if she wants to put that on her website, she's up there on her own.
Yeah,
Well, I hear different.
she's speaking as an individual commissioner, not as a board of commissioners.
Would it be inappropriate to ask the county attorney her initial thoughts on that? Or I guess my question is, can the board be held like, can you be sued as well because you knew about it and you didn't do anything about it?
We didn't know anything about it. The first thing we knew about it is when we read it.
Well, you know now.
Well, it's too late
So
now.
liability is what did you know, when did you know it, and what did you do about it? So I guess that's where I'm coming from. Like,
I guess
or is
we're-
there anything that can be done? I don't,
Well, I guess we got to get a legal opinion on it.
people in the public have asked me, how do we stop this?
Well, I get that too.
And I don't know the
I got
answer.
several calls regarding the letter that I wrote, showing that I did not hire an attorney, I did not spend $90,000, I did not spend $135,000. I don't know what you can do about it. If she's acting as a commissioner, maybe there is something. If she's doing it as an individual taxpayer, then maybe we can't. But she has knowledge of what happens at the county level, because she's a commissioner. So, I suppose we can spend more money with an attorney, taxpayers' dollars, to find out whether we can do anything or not. I mean, I certainly don't like the idea that she's giving out information that may not be accurate, and it puts us in a bad light, the rest of us here on the board. She's not signing it as a board, she's signing it as an individual. Whether she's liable, I guess we can get some opinions from different attorneys.
Okay. And
I don't like what's going on, but on the other hand, I don't know, I can ask other commissioners in other counties what they do.
and you have an association meeting on Friday?
Hopefully,
Maybe you could.
yep.
And I missed the public comment at the beginning of your meeting today.
Mhm.
I was wondering if you made any announcement about who was going to be taking the non-public meeting minutes?
No. That's the responsibility of the clerk.
But you're going into non-public today, and she's not here, so who's taking the minutes?
So you're not going to be.
That's a good
Can you do it today?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
It is legal to have a recording secretary in a non-public meeting,
You can
from
invite
what we were
anybody in
told.
that you want.
What's that?
I said you can invite anyone in that you want,
True.
so, okay.
Anything else?
No, that was it. Thank
Okay,
you.
anybody else? Public input? If not, then we'll close that portion of the meeting and Robin, can you come back, rather than going right into non-public? We got some things, maybe another half an hour.
That's good.
Okay, thank you.
You want to do
The handbook.
you want to do the commissioners' work session? You want
Yeah,
to start
yeah.
off with my 4 suggestions that I had here while everybody's here, might want to hear, might not want to
Yeah,
hear?
I didn't hear anything about that. Go ahead.
Well, let me just find my paper. The first one we took care of, that was the, to change the, who can call the,
Yeah. Attorney.
attorney. And I feel a little bit awkward here because a couple of these concern Commissioner Kenney and she isn't here. I was completely caught off balance by her accusation that you called Liz Bailey about her website, or that I called about it. And I should have been on the ball and asked her how she knows that one of us called Liz Bailey, or how she thinks one of us called Liz Bailey. And I think that if you were here, I'd be asking her how she knows Liz Bailey, about Liz Bailey's call if we didn't make it. I had a conversation with a constituent from Wakefield, from Brookfield the other day, and he brought up a very good issue, and it was basically about what we have for procedures here. And he started off with the Reed-Kenney report, and he asked me about what I thought about conflicts of interest, and I said, well, there shouldn't be any. And he said, well, can you give me a better example of a conflict of interest than Commissioner Kenney voting on her own report not to release it? And I said, no, I said, that's a pretty good example. And from that, it went on to what happened to the other 2 grievances that included yourself and Commissioner Solomon. And not that he wasn't looking for answers, he wanted to know what we have for procedures in the future. And I think the gentleman was absolutely right. We ought to pretty soon begin to discuss what we're going to do. What happens if you get down to, well, in this case, it was against 2, and that only leaves 1 to vote on the issue. I think the man made some very good points, and I think we ought to begin thinking about what he said. And the other thing that I did a little research on was this week's blog and from Commissioner Kenney is about jail inspections. And to her credit, she did a very, very good job. But in that blog, she says that she was the first one to do it. And being the liaison between the jail and the board, I did some looking into it. And the results of what I found out is the following commissioners did at least 1 inspection: Commissioner Sorensen, Commissioner Lyman, Commissioner Solomon, and Commissioner Webster. And when I checked with Commissioner Webster, she told me that after the jail opened and with her report, that somebody in the Attorney General's office, I think the gentleman's name was Thompson, but I'm not sure, said that we didn't have to do any more because it was a new facility. And that there was a report written, and the letter was in the bottom right-hand drawer in a file titled Jail in the desk that's now occupied by the 3rd commissioner. And I was hoping that she was here today so that we could see if she could pull it out and see if in fact that was the case, because there have been inspections done on the jail in the past, more than just hers, in the past 10 years, or however many years it's been open. And I think I would have, if you were here, asked her to correct her website, because the facts are the facts. That has been done.
Yeah. I think we need to contact the Attorney General's office. I can't believe that because we have a new jail that it's not inspected.
I can't believe that we're exempt from doing it. It's the law.
Yeah.
I can't believe we're exempt from doing it.
And I
Oh,
think
the other
it's
thing
twice a year.
the other important thing which Commissioner Kenney is correct in the letter from the Attorney General's. Nobody has written any reports apparently, but the inspections were done, so they didn't get filed with the.
Commissioner Solomon and Commissioner Sorensen's inspections are in writing and were submitted to the AG's office.
They were.
Prior to.
Well, thank you.
Commissioner
And the
Kenney's.
letter on her website from the Attorney General's office is not accurate. It says nothing has been filed.
They did say that in a letter, so I took all 3 inspections, Commissioner Kenney's,
Solomon?
Solomon and Sorensen, and resent all 3.
But
That's
they
my
were sent
understanding.
originally?
I don't know. They would have
You
been
don't-
sent before my time.
Oh, okay.
My understanding was they were, but after getting that, I had a right-to-know request. I sent it to the Attorney General's office requesting all inspections for the past 10 years. I had already seen the one that you had done,
Mhm.
Commissioner Solomon, so I knew they existed. But the AG's office said they didn't have them, so I sent all 3 back down.
Okay. So
Okay.
my sources were accurate. There were reports written but not sent in.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You got anything else?
No, that's fine.
Okay. Then we'll move into work session and finish up our handbook this morning. Oh. This is, you might look at that. I don't know if you get a copy of that or not, but look at the, on the right-hand side, there's some training sessions for several different items, and I believe they're right in North Conway.
Great.
So there might be something you may want to go to, or Debbie may want to go to, or somebody else may want to go to.
Definitely.
I'm sure there's a fee, but it's local,
Yep.
and I think it'd be worthwhile for somebody to go to that from
Mhm.
the county. Okay?
Sounds good.
All right.
This should be quick.
Page what? 40?
Section 5, leave of absence.
Section 5, okay. Leave of absence. Finished holiday and personnel,
Yep.
Family medical leave.
sick leave.
And again, family medical leave, this is federal law, it's taken entirely from the law.
So there's no changes that we can make there, then?
No, there isn't. It's just we insert Carroll County.
Jan, this is a little bit off the subject, but
Sure.
do we, or could you keep any records of, not by name, but by just time, how much this costs the county? And I know last year it was 660 hours, I think, at the nursing home alone
For family
what?
medical,
for family medical.
I'm not sure, it's non-paid in the sense that they don't continue their
Right.
wages, but they can use their vacation. In fact, they're required to use their sick vacation.
Well, it doesn't
benefit
cost the
hours.
county if it paying, but it costs the county because somebody else has to come in and do their work.
It's true.
And, it's just nothing we can do about it. It would just be interesting to know if, I'm just asking if anybody keeps track of it so that
Well, we do
at the
by
end of the year,
individual.
we could say, geez, we had 800 hours out on family leave. And
I
But,
can certainly tell you how many people were out and the length of time that they were out. It'll take some time for me to go back and see
No, I don't-
how many weeks were compensated through their benefits that they had
I don't
available.
want to do all of that.
Who
I
got
just-
donated time.
It's just a
or-
colossal number of hours.
It
that We
is.
have to either plan for somebody else
Mhm.
or go without.
well, we could hire in somebody temporarily because they're not getting paid.
Right.
But we'd have to pay somebody to come in, but it wouldn't be an additional cost to the taxpayers, because while they're out on family medical
Except if
leave,
they
they
come
don't
in
get
here, if
paid.
it's a nurse and they come in here and they're getting $23 an hour and we pay the temporary agency 75. it's
Oh, I don't
costing
mean
us
doing
money.
that. I mean, we could
Well,
hire
anybody.
somebody locally.
Oh,
We
yeah.
don't have to
if-
hire anybody from the
No,
pool.
no, if they're
We-
local then.
We certainly can see how much it costs, but again, it is a federal right.
Right.
And it is something that medical certification is required. It's not something somebody can just say, I need to go out it requires certification from a medical provider that either this person or a member of their immediate family whom they take care of is suffering from a
Well,
serious.
don't spend a lot of time, but if you're
Okay.
thinking of it, if you're just keeping track, jot it down on a piece of paper.
We
I
do.
was shocked when I found out how many hours it was at the nursing home.
I can give you the number of hours countywide, because we do track that.
Okay.
Can I ask a question about this policy?
Mhm.
Is that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Is that okay?
Normally, we don't do that,
I know.
and from now on, we're not. We'll let you do it this time, all right?
Yeah, brief, I know.
I mean, the way this was set up, it wasn't supposed to be public input, this is strictly commissioners.
I just had a question about, it says that the employee may take up to 12 weeks,
Mhm.
I believe, in a rolling month period.
12 months.
What if that an employee has used up their 12 weeks and then they come with another doctor's note and they want more time? What happens?
Can I answer that?
Go ahead, yeah.
That has happened on occasion, that they've exhausted their 12 weeks. And you have to think of this in terms of, this is what they're guaranteed under the law, that they will be restored to their previous position or comparable. Once those 12 weeks are up, if they need additional time, they can apply for a further personal leave, but the job guarantee has gone away at that point. So if we have a position to return them to, we can certainly do that, provided they're able to return at the end of, say, a 30-day well, I don't want to use the word extension because you can't extend family medical leave. But an additional leave could be granted on a case-by-case basis, provided it's medically certified. But there's no job guarantee. There's
And who-
nothing.
Who grants that extension?
Normally, it would,
Board of
we'd run
Commissioners.
it by the Board of Commissioners because it's an extraordinary circumstance.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right. Then we can't
I think we can do there.
change anything there, okay. So then we go to general leave of absence policy.
And the general leave would be if they don't qualify for family medical leave, say they haven't been here long enough. Under the law for family medical, they have to have been here for a certain period of time or met the hours requirement. If they haven't done that, they may put in for a general leave of absence, and that's at your discretion entirely.
I have a suggestion on here.
Mhm.
Number one, I think the word's pronounced exigent.
Where is it?
I can't believe there's many people that know what that is that works on this county. How about changing it to urgent, or pressing?
Okay.
While they're on family leave, getting back to that last section,
Mhm.
they're not being paid,
Right.
but do the benefits continue?
They have to pay for
They
their
have to pay-
portion of the benefits during that.
So we're still paying the 80% for benefits,
We are,
even though they're not getting a wage?
correct. They have to pay their portion. For the period of time that they're receiving a check, whether it's sick time, vacation time, donated time, it automatically comes out of that check. However, once they've exhausted that,
Mm-hmm.
they have to make arrangements with Kathy to send their portion of the premiums in.
Okay, then what about personal leave beyond the family medical leave?
They have
We
to
still
pay-
paying their benefits,
No.
total benefits?
No.
We're not paying any
No,
benefits
they're supposed to pay their own at that point.
from that point, okay.
Becomes like a COLA.
Exactly.
Mhm.
It's still at the group rate, because we haven't officially put them out on COBRA at that point, because
COBRA, excuse me.
we're anticipating their return, so it's a benefit to them, because the COBRA rate is much, much higher,
Mm-hmm,
so.
okay. Okay, number 7 really is what we're talking about.
Mhm.
Failure to report back to work on the first day after expiration of the general leave of absence will be considered a voluntary termination of employment.
Mhm. Normally, what should happen is during any leave of absence, as you're approaching the date for return, there'd be communication, which I know my office, we always do that. We send letters, your expiration, or the expiration of your family, medical, or personal leave is this date. Just checking in to see how you're feeling, see if there's any special accommodations or needs that we could have in order to transition you back to work. Oftentimes, after somebody's been out for a significant period, other than, even maternity it may be, they may have to start off at a reduced schedule. There may be, if it's an injury, there may be sedentary work only that they can do. So all of these things have to be taken into account prior to the return. If they say, I can't return, which happens on occasion, it's the day after their leave ends that it's a voluntary termination. It's basically job abandonment at that point.
But somewhere in here, I'm not sure if we discussed it already, if it's further on, we make arrangements for them to come back to do light duty
Yep.
type.
We already
Yep.
went over that.
We already
And
remember that.
that's actually, it's also spelled out, transitional or temporary alternative duty, which is the final page, but that's part of the workers' comp. But we will do that anyway under the American with Disabilities Act, anytime somebody has a serious illness or injury that requires
That's what it
treatment.
is. We haven't gone over that yet.
Okay, well, I prove you I read it.
We are required to offer reasonable accommodations. That's what we had gone over, the American with Disabilities Act provision.
Okay. Okay, anything on absence policy, leave of absence? If not, what about jury duty?
Yeah. First line of policy, any employee may be granted leave without loss of pay while on jury duty or when subpoenaed to appear. It's always been my experience, what you got was the difference between what you were paid for jury duty and
That's
what your
correct.
regular pay is.
Yeah.
It says without loss of pay here, that's certainly,
I can spell that out, but that is definitely, they're required to provide the documentation that they
well, it
perform the
certainly would
service.
strike
and what
out
was
without
paid.
loss of pay, so.
So during such leave, the county will pay the difference between any, that's the final line there, between any compensation received and the regular net pay.
Did you just make that up, or am I missing it on here?
It's on the bottom sentence. Is that not in there on yours, the final sentence?
Yeah, last sentence.
I didn't just
County
make
will
it
pay
up.
the difference between any compensation
Okay.
received for.
I never even saw that. Okay, that answers that question.
Okay.
Except I would change it up above, or
Okay.
to see below, or,
Okay.
All right, anything else? All right, then we go to section 6, job-related injuries and illness. Is this a law for
Yes.
workman's compensation, or is this a requirement for our insurance carrier? That we inform them within, was it 3 days?
No, this is a requirement for the the carrier as well. It should be done within 24 hours. That should be the benchmark, as opposed to 3 days. The last thing we ever want to do is have a legitimate injury declined because you open the door to an insurance company to say there's no causal relationship between the injury and being out. The longer the period of time. So it's in the employee's best interest as well as the county's best interest to report this right away.
so why don't we make it 24 hours?
I prefer to. It's always been 3, but I'd prefer to have it 24 hours.
The last sentence in that paragraph,
So,
to notify their supervisor within 24 hours.
the supervisor, but I'd like to have it sent to us so that we can report it to Primex, just to preserve everybody's rights.
All right, so we change within 3 days to 24 hours?
Yep.
Okay, they get 12 weeks for FMLA. Why do we have, oh, okay. But they have, within 18 months, request to come back.
Eligible for reinstatement, yeah. If the position exists and is available. And I can tell you that it wasn't being done previously, but it is certainly our right to run concurrent family medical leave with workers' comp. That had never been done, I guess, here previously, but it really should be, because the last thing you want is to have someone out for 12 weeks due to a workers' comp injury, come back and go, now I want my family medical.
Get them for 24 weeks.
Yeah.
And they're legally obligated, I mean, we would be, to give it to them. So we have every right to do it, and I just,
Where does that get changed?
well, we're doing that now.
We are doing it now?
We are doing that now.
Okay. But it's in here.
But you want to change number 1, don't you?
For,
Will immediately be placed on FMLA to run,
no, that's
That's
a,
what we want.
that's a
That's
change,
what
that's
we want,
exactly
yeah. Yep.
what we want.
concurrently, okay. This is new.
Okay, workman's comp. Okay, alternative duty.
This goes with, hand in hand with the workers' comp. We always want to get someone back to work.
I didn't have any comments on that.
When a doctor signs a certificate for them, is he given their job description, I wonder? To know
Often,
what their job would be, so that he could either say, yes, they could come back because of the light duty work that they're presently doing?
in my experience, and this has no fault of the injured worker that goes out, but in my experience, the injured worker goes out, talks with their doctor, explains what they do for work, and the doctor says, no, you can't go back at this point.
Yeah.
It's then, the onus is on us and on Primex to get with that physician and that injured worker and say, no, you can't, because of your limitations right now, do that job, but we have this job with these restrictions available. That gets the injured party back to work. For as long, and accommodate those restrictions for as long as necessary till the person is safely able to return to their job. But so often there is a breakdown in that communication because the job that the person was injured doing, oftentimes, due to their injury, they can't do it, legitimately can't. But the doctors aren't aware of what else we have available on this complex in each facility, so it's up to us to educate them.
At what point in time do we hold their job open under those circumstances?
Well, workers' comp, we really have to.
Up to 18 months.
We really have
18
to.
months.
And it may be that the individual, God forbid, has a permanent disability.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
But I'm hoping in that sense, that we would find something that they could do within their restrictions. It just makes sense.
Okay. Any other questions on alternative duty? Then the disclaimers.
I think you got an extra page.
Yeah, I don't have that either.
You don't have
Which
disclaimers?
disclaimers?
Was it in the original?
Employment
Oh,
at
yeah,
will,
yeah.
collective bargaining agreements, and employee reference guide.
Disclaimers, is it pretty much the same from the original copy, so I can stick it in this?
It is. You're going to get a complete copy anyway, with all the changes that we've made. By the way, has your individual email been established for Carroll County yet?
No.
No.
Okay.
Okay, are we done?
And then there will be a signature page as well for the employee.
That's the first page.
Well, that's for the commissioners to sign. But a signature page
Oh,
for
to
the
approve it.
employee
Yeah,
acknowledging receipt.
well, you can change the commissioners.
Yep.
So as an at-will employee,
Mhm.
if we run out of work, if whatever, we can lay that person off, my understanding, with no,
Non-union.
non-union, with no penalty.
A layoff?
Well,
Lay them off or whatever. And if not, why does it always appear that this isn't true?
We are an at-will state.
Right,
yeah,
We are.
yes.
So we just can't we have to make extremely sure that we're meeting every aspect of the law if we were doing that. We're not only laying off females over 40, for example, or any sort of protected class. But at-will means at-will,
That's what I thought.
other
But you
than,
constantly hear cases going to the labor board that they were terminated.
we had that.
well, because it's oftentimes a pretext for something else. You just don't ever you want to be sure that you've done an analysis across the board prior to doing any sort of layoff, shutdown, job elimination, or otherwise, that you're not impacting one protected class more than others. If you're leaving all of the 21-year-old white males in place, and it just so happens that the only folks, I mean, we don't have many minorities up here, but whatever minorities we do have, and females over a certain age were the only ones, or people of a certain religion or faith, if that was the impact that it had, we'd find ourselves in court, even though we are at will.
Okay.
And don't forget, anybody can claim anything. It doesn't mean that they're going to be successful, but anyone can go to court with any sort of an allegation.
All right, we satisfied? Well, we're gonna get a printout, right?
Oh, yeah, we'll have
Final one.
all the changes and have it printed so that they're front-to-back copies, so it'll shrink that down to half its size.
Less paper.
Lot less paper. Stored electronically whenever possible.
But it's gonna be signed by every employee, so.
It will,
it's
so the
gotta be
signature
paper.
pages will at least have to be.
Yeah.
But we have to make hard copies available as well as have it on our website under the employee button.
Do you see every new employee that's hired?
No,
You don't?
not generally unless, well, I shouldn't say that. The nursing home is very good about holding orientations and having a HR representative there. A lot of departments send a new hire to us at some point if they're benefited
Yeah.
or eligible for benefits,
Did you
just
see
to
the
go over.
new assistant county attorney?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
yeah. It would be nice to have some sort of standardized process so they're all getting the same consistent message.
March 27th,
Yep, there you go.
March 27th.
Yeah, right.
Perfect example.
It's really critical that everyone has the same message delivered in the same way, so that if we ever do find ourselves in front of a board, whatever board it may be, we can say that with full conviction that every single person received this, had the opportunity to ask questions, went over it in detail. Here's a signature page to show that they received it.
So this should be done by March 27th.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that'll be done before the next
Okay.
commissioners' hearing, meeting.
Now, you going out for bids on this to get it printed up into a book? Or
I will,
are we-
but first I want to make all the changes, see how much we're talking about here in terms of pages. And we'll,
And if we do go out for something, shouldn't it be a loose leaf rather than a binding?
I was gonna suggest a 3-ring notebook and just publish the pages and put them in the 3-ring notebook.
For everybody?
Well, I guess we'd have to
That's a
start
lot of-
with for everybody, but
That's a lot of bucks.
it's gonna be a lot of bucks if you start printing it too. This isn't,
Because there may be, we may be adding on to that.
oh, yeah. Oh, it's going to
So
change.
we
It's a
want to make
fluid
it so that we can
document.
add on to it, but
It will
or a spiral
change.
notebook or something, I mean, to make it a hard-bound staple, and then you're gonna change something.
yeah, yeah.
Whatever.
Okay, I guess we're all done with that, right?
Okay.
All right, then we can go into non-public for Janice and for Robin Gordon. And I believe it's personnel?
Yes,
Okay.
and the issue that we had, the timesheets that were requested.
Okay. Then,
Yes.
you want to make a motion to go into non-public?
I'll make a motion that we take a recess for 5 minutes.
I want a motion to go into non-public and after 5 minutes.
I'll make a motion that we go into non-public session after a 5-minute recess.
Okay, second it. Any further discussion? No. All those in support of the motion say aye. Aye. So be it. Thank you very much for coming today.
Thank you for looking up those reports, Janice.